Is Dragon Age Veilguard worth it? Ooh, this is a fun video to make because that answer is going to depend on which side of the fence you're falling on, and it's an extremely polarizing discussion that has been sort of riveting the RPG community and people who have been BioWare fans or are like myself still BioWare fans after all these years. Because on the one hand, you have people who absolutely love this game, myself included, even though there are some little things that I've poked at. And then you have people who just hate this game and want BioWare to cease to exist as a company. It's wild. The one person I think who had one of the best things to say about this, or at least said it in a way that I resonated with, was Crom from Larian Studios, the head of publishing for Larian Studios, Baldur's Gate 3, who called this an existential RPG, a highly polished return to form for BioWare as a studio. In his discussion on Twitter X, which we covered in a previous video, he talked about how he was playing this in the office kind of away from everybody else because he didn't want to spoil it for people. And he was having a great time. And he said, if you looked at this game, it was kind of like the difference between, like, say, a big, huge, epic RPG like Baldur's Gate 3, which has 250, 300 hours of content if you do the completionist version. That's like the 7 series Netflix show that you watch from start to finish, right? It's like Game of Thrones. And then you have this, which is more like the one season, 9 or 10 episode binge watch that you can go through, and it's much shorter, but it's still a very rich and detailed and fun experience. It's a very fast-paced game that knows when to take it down a notch and bring you into the story and then put you back into the action again. A good example of that is sitting here in the lighthouse, which is the place between missions where we come with our characters. I'm with my character Rook right now. It's kind of like if you ever played any of the previous Dragon Age games, you had your keeps, and if you played the Mass Effect games, you had your ship. This is the downtime between where you get to talk to all of your companions and get to know them and just take a breather in between some of these massive boss fights and adventures that you're having in between. There's a lot to do in this game. I've heard most people are getting in the ballpark of 50 to 60 hours for their gameplays. If you're playing the game at a reasonable pace, you're not trying to speed run it. And then the completionists are doing like 60 to 80 hours. I've been doing a sort of like middle of the road playthrough. I'm mid 30s now, mid 30s hours into the game. I would anticipate a 50 to 60 hour gameplay on my end, but we'll see. Um, it's been a lot. I did my initial review this morning, which followed up on my early thoughts video. So if you want to go beyond this video and really get into the meat and potatoes of what this game is, I would highly recommend taking a look at those videos. There's a playlist down below that you can check out if you're interested. It's more of an action RPG than it is a full-on role-playing game. So the roots of the Dragon Age franchise are, it started off as like a turn-based slash real-time pause-based CRPG with party-based, it was a party-based game where you had multiple parties, multiple members in your party. High fantasy, learning about these darkspawn and the evil and these archdemons and everything that came along with that. These this group called the Grey Wardens, and then you go from Dragon Age 2 Dragon Age 1 to Dragon Age 2, and I'll never forget this because when Dragon Age 2 came out, they changed the formula. They went from a tactical RPG, like a CRPG, into something that was more of an action-based game. And it was more linear missions as opposed to open world format. And the outcry from the Dragon Age Origins community at the time was Dragon Age 2 sucks. And then over time, people have come to love Dragon Age 2. Then Dragon Age Inquisition came along, and I personally did not like Dragon Age Inquisition when it came out. I tried it, was like, not a big fan, left it alone, came back when it had released the Game of the Year edition, tried it again, and had a good time and played it all the way through, and enjoyed the storyline and the characters and everything else, but I didn't really care for the combat. I much preferred the Dragon Age Origin style, but I still liked the game. And Dragon Age as a franchise has always evolved from one thing into another, and this is just the latest iteration of that. It has evolved into something else. It is a party-based RPG at its core. You have two companions that you can take with you. You can romance companions like you can in many other RPGs, and there are lots of side quests that you can do with your companions where you can earn reputation with your companions just like you can in many other RPGs. There's also a gear system where you can gear up your companions, just like you can in many other RPGs. And there's a hub here where you can come back and talk to your companions, just like you can in many other RPGs. There's an action based combat system whereby you can either play it in real time, kind of like God of War, or you can pause it and slow it down and do tactical based gameplay with an action twist, which still goes back to the roots of the franchise as a game that had pause-based gameplay. So there's the DNA of the original games in here, as well as the DNA from BioWare's other franchise, the Mass Effect series. Now, if you've never played any of these games, that's okay. That's kind of why I'm talking about this video, because if you're someone who's never played the game before, you might be wondering, is it worth it? Who do I listen to? There's people who hate the game and say it's the worst thing ever, and there's people who love the game and say they're having a blast. I would say that the best thing to do is to try to find people who are playing the game without being too far in either direction and watch their streams and see if it's something that you might enjoy. I think that if you like action RPGs like God of War or games of that nature, you're probably going to have a lot of fun here. But if you're someone who prefers tactical, slow CRPGs like, say, Baldur's Gate 3 or Pillars of Eternity 1 or 2 or the original Baldur's Gate games, this might be a little too fast paced for you because even though you can slow it down in the middle of combat, it sometimes can be overwhelming. But one of the really cool things that BioWare has done with the game is they've allowed you to go in and have all of these accessibility options. I watched a girl on TikTok today and it just made my heart swell because she was crying about the fact that she was able to come in and adjust the gameplay to exactly the way that she wanted. And she had turned this mode on right here, Prevent Death. She had turned this off or on, I should say. So she had never played an action RPG before, and she had been worried about not having any skill at playing action RPGs, and she was worried about dying. So she was able to go into the storytelling mode, the story play mode, and turn death off and play the game and have fun with the story and get to know the characters and immerse herself in the game world without feeling the sting of death or that super hardcore, fast-paced action experience, which you could totally have, by the way, as well if you want to crank the difficulty all the way up to nightmare mode. I'm playing on adventure mode, and if you've been watching the streams, I have died quite a few times because my reaction times suck. Um, but they've done such a good job with the accessibility options in this game that it gives the player total agency. The player has total control over the experience that they're going to get out of this game, which is the reason that I think, yes, this game is worth it because at the end of the day, everybody out there is going to find the exact experience that they're looking for from this game. There's a lot to do, there's a lot to see. There's really good voice acting, there's diversity of characters in this game, there is meaningful stakes, there are things, as an example, there's a choice you have to make. I don't want to spoil it by saying anything, but there's a choice you have to make at one point where you have to decide the fate of two cities. And the choices you make have impactful results on the characters in your party based on which city you decide that you're going to save. There are lots of consequences to actions in terms of faction and reputation. Which you've seen in many other RPGs before. So if you're a fan of RPGs that lean towards the action side of things, like I said, God of War type games, you're probably going to enjoy this. Even if you don't like action RPGs, quick commercial break, everyone, to celebrate and give thanks to all of these amazing people who keep me on the air full time. Really appreciate the support. All you got to do is join as a member. You get access to private videos. You can also do super thanks on any upload or super chats and stickers on any live stream or premiere you see. And beyond that, don't forget we're multi-streaming over on Twitch now, so you can support over there as well. Thanks so much to everybody. Let's get back to the video at hand. This still might be something that you would enjoy because you can adjust the difficulty down to absolutely nothing so that you're not dying in combat, but you're still having the fun of getting in there and throwing your weapons around and seeing all the cool spell effects go off and the finishers and combos between all your various companions, because there's a lot to do here and you do have a lot of companions and all of them are really, really cool. You've got Balara, who's sort of like this um, curious elven scholar type character, who's a ranger. You have Davern, who's a Grey Warden warrior who has a pet griffin. You have Emmerich, who is, and this is the cool thing, like the necromancers in this game are not your typical necromancers. Think this is more like Day of the Dead and Coco, where there's a respect for the dead and the guardians of the spirits. Harding is like the she's a carryover from the previous game, who's a dwarven scout who has ties to the previous game, and she wears her heart on her sleeve, and she's got some strange magical powers that are manifesting in interesting ways. Lucanus is probably my favorite character so far. He's like a coffee drinking Italian assassin, super sexy. Nev is the romance companion I'm choosing for this. She's like a noir detective who's also an ice mage, and then Tash, who is a I would say she kind of reminds me of like a late teens, early 20s, trying to find out who she is type character. And along that way, this is the character that has been the most polarizing for a lot of people because I say she, but they, as we come to find out in the game later on, make a decision to be a they them. And that's something that for a lot of people has been a triggering conversation. By the way, I haven't gotten to the they them part, which is why I'm still getting away with saying she, because she hasn't told me yet that she wants to be a they them. And I think that that's great because it's the developers showcasing their personalities in the game and portraying art in a style that makes them happy. And we, as people who play video games, who are here to enjoy video games, that's one of the beauties of this is that we get to join in on other people's art and experience it. It's kind of like if you are a fan of a band and you follow along with their records, you've got, say, the Rolling Stones, who have put out a ton of records over the years. Some people like their first three albums, some people like the middle three albums, some people like the most recent three albums, and some of us are fans who love all of their music. And that's the cool thing about bioware, is one of the things they've done a very good job over the years is creating super rich RPGs with deep characters who have lots of decisions that are made along the way and queer representation in all of their games. And Tash is the latest representation of that, and they've done a really good job with this character, and I've loved seeing the evolution as Tash has gone on this journey to discover the identity underneath this hulking brute. It's been a lot of fun. So if you're someone who loves good story and you want a good adventure, I think this is a great game. I would argue that anybody who says that there is a uh, woke agenda in this game, it's just not true. There is representation, there is diversity, but it's up to you whether or not you choose to do those things, whether it's from character creation and choosing to make your character look a certain way, or whether you choose to have your character be referred to by specific pronouns. You're learning things about all of the characters in this game, and it's a very rich and deep fantasy universe with lots of fun to be had. So I say go forth, try it for yourself, and see if you can have fun. I do think it's worth it at the end of the day, but again, results may vary. I think that at the end of the day, all I like to do is play fun video games, and this one has been fun for me. If you want more information, you can obviously check out the videos in my playlist below. We got a lot of thoughts videos, discussion videos, early thoughts, initial review. There's lots of guides every single day, and I am going to be playing this game all the way out till November 20th when we switch over to Stalker 2, and then Indiana Jones, The Great Circle in early December. So hopefully we'll see you in the next one. Daily streams on YouTube and Twitch at 8 or 9 a.m. Central Time, depending on what time I get going. So hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. Until then, stay safe. Happy gaming, everybody.